Good evening. Welcome to the May 18th Auburn Zoning Board of Appeals meeting. We have 3 hearings this evening. I wanted to just take care of a couple of housekeeping items for this evening. We do have a board member that is absent this evening, and so for reorganization purposes, and just for the record, we'll have our alternate, Karen Blaze step in as a voting member. So can I have a motion to have Karen step in as a voting member?
Motion to have her step in.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
So Karen will step in as a full voting member this evening, and so we'll be able to maintain a majority vote of at least 4 to 1 for the affirmative for any applications to move forward. Just like to ask as a second order of housekeeping, the meeting is being recorded tonight for public record. Is there anyone in the audience that would be recording this evening? Seeing none. So what I'd like to do as our 7 o'clock applicant, I believe, is here. Our first applicant this evening is Linda Lagasse, requesting a special permit for an existing accessory apartment under section 9.3.12.6 of the Auburn zoning bylaws to allow an apartment within an existing dwelling on property located at 41 School Street, Auburn, Mass., map 49, parcel 229. And this hearing is continued from April 20th, 2017. Can I have a motion to open the hearing?
Motion to open the hearing.
Can I have a second? All those in favor?
Aye.
So we are open for the first. Is the applicant present?
I'm here instead.
Could you approach, sir, and give us a brief introduction of what you're looking to accomplish? I appreciate that this is a continuation.
Good evening. My name is Edward Sullivan. I live at 41 School Street. Trying to trying to purchase the property. My mother-in-law is living in the apartment downstairs. After the last meeting, I had the assistant building inspector come over for a visit, told me what I needed to do to get it up to code. We did it to the letter, and as of tonight, everything's good to go in the building department's eyes.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much, sir. Before I open it up to the board members for questions, Caleb, if we could just get your summation of recent events.
I would agree with Mr. Sullivan. A permit's been issued to add a second means of egress and also to increase the fire separation from the basement unit to the upstairs unit as well as to the garage. I believe a framing and insulation inspection's been done. I think we'd need to do a final inspection once he's completed everything, but I don't see any reason to hold it up at this point.
Very good. Okay. Thank you very much for that. I'd like to move things in a slightly different direction with ladies first this evening, as we tend in the board to always start here, and gentlemen, I'm sure you can appreciate. Ms. Blaze?
No, just pending you have an occupancy permit, that's fine. Are there any butters here? Just curious.
Okay.
Any butters? No? Nope, then I'm fine. Thank you.
Very good. Ms. Roach?
No, I don't. I guess the only comment I would make is, I think last time we had a question of what the square footage would be, and it seems that now it's clear that it's 490, just to get that on the record. I don't have any other questions.
Okay. All right, thank you. Mr. Cussy?
No questions.
Mr. Colo?
All set, as long as the final inspection will be done.
All right, very good.
Sir, I forgot to mention that Rick Travers has come for the second inspection for the framing, and he was going to tell Caleb that everything's all set and that we can go ahead with the finalization of the permit.
Okay. All right, and I appreciate that, and that's on the record, and I'm near certain that will flow to Caleb through appropriate channels based on the report coming in, so he'll receive that. I didn't know if you had an additional commenter on that, Caleb.
I'm all set.
All right, very good.
Thank you.
And quite frankly, the chair has no additional questions. I would just offer that I appreciate that we talked about this during the previous hearing, and that going back, confirming the square footage, and then satisfying all the conditions, having the visit with our code enforcement. And so appreciate your working with them directly, and coming forward. So do you have any additional questions for the board, sir?
All this contingency's been going since October on us purchasing this piece of land, house. And we need to have some kind of confirmation from the town saying that you're okay with the permit, with the apartment being there, so we can give it over to our mortgage company that's loaning the money. They need to see that it's okay with the town, that everything's good to go, so we want to close by the 25th. And everything's hinging on this.
Understood. And understand that that's what you're here to accomplish, and having that documentation. And not predicting, but by granting the special permit, thereby you would have written confirmation from the town that you're authorized to proceed.
Thank you very much.
I mean, it would, again, not presupposing how a vote would go, but that would in fact provide your confirmation
Okay.
for next steps. Okay. Any additional questions?
I don't think so.
Okay, and there was a gentleman that stepped in, so I just want to offer again, are there any abutters for this hearing that would like to speak?
Which was this is for one of those Silver Street Realty requesting a special permit?
No.
No. Okay, so confirming that there are no abutters and no additional comments, sir? Okay, thank you. No additional comments from the board?
Motion to close the public hearing?
Motion been made to close.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, so voted, so the hearing is closed. And so, is there a motion on the floor?
I'll make a motion to approve the request for a special permit for an existing accessory apartment under section 9.3.12.6 of the Auburn zoning bylaws, with the condition that they receive final signatures on their permit.
Second.
Caleb, I don't want to say something.
So I was just making a quick note. So motion has been made, and thank you, Karen, for second. All right, so I don't know that I need to go. Mr. Colo,
Standard conditions will cover.
discuss it? Approve. Okay. And the chair approves, so it would be unanimous as approved.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
All right. Good luck to you. Thank you, sir. Okay. As just a matter of housekeeping, and we are obligated to stay exactly on time. Believe it or not, we started late, but ended the first hearing a bit early. And our second hearing is scheduled for 7:15. So we will need to take a brief pause until 7:15, so that we have to start directly on time. So we will take, if I could have a motion for a 2-minute recess by my clock?
Motion for recess?
Second? Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
So we are in recess until 7:15. Thank you. Thank you, Rick. Okay, so can I have a motion to come out of recess?
Motion?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, so voted. So our second hearing this evening is 7:15, applicant Donald E. Fontois Jr., and apologies if I've ruined that last name, sir. Requesting a special permit for an accessory apartment under section 9.3.12 and a variance for the square footage to exceed the allowed 700 square foot under section 9.3.12.3 of the Auburn zoning bylaws for property located at 405 Rochdale Street, Auburn, Mass., map 37, parcel 18. And this hearing is continued from 4/20/17 as well. Can I have a motion to open the hearing?
Motion to open.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
So we are open. So is the applicant present? Good evening, sir. If you could state your name for the record again, sir.
Fontois, my wife Deb.
Good evening.
We're back. We adjusted the plans exactly as you requested, 696 square feet. And we're here for your approval.
Thank you, sir, and thank you for being back. The plans were received by the board, and I would just like to thank you for your thoughtful return. We do have them in front of us, and I will say, for one, as I take some responsibility for leading a fair amount of discussion last time, that I did also look at your current plan, and I am in agreement that what we're looking at this point is 696 square feet. for the apartment. And so I just wanted to put that out there based on the fact that I take full responsibility for putting you through some paces last time. So thank you for returning. What I'd like to do, do you have any other comments or questions, sir? Okay, no? Okay. So what I'd like to do is open it up to the board members for individual questions and discussion. And in like fashion, I'd like to start with the ladies this evening. So Karen?
I have no questions. I'm very pleased with the plan. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Roach?
Nope, I'm good.
Any questions? Ms. Chacolo?
I do. I do not see legal means of egress. I do not see legal means of egress.
Front doors, one goes to the front porch, one goes to the garage, and then there is a full slider in the back. That goes right to the backyard.
At the risk of interrupting both you gentlemen, I apologize. If you could just turn that microphone toward you, sir, so that everyone at home, because I know that my wife is watching riveted to the television. We just want to make sure we can hear you. And Mr. Cole, actually, if I may ask you to do the same, you were coming in very soft. Thank you, sir. Sorry, gentlemen. Please continue.
I want to make sure you tell that to my wife
Very good.
afterwards. What I'm looking at is the means of egress that goes into the garage, but you say that there is a slider?
There's a front door right next to the garage door that goes to the front porch. So there's two doors side by side. One goes to the front porch, one goes to the garage.
This, that leads to a covered patio.
It's a front porch. Yeah,
Okay, covered patio,
Yeah.
which leads to a garage.
no. Garage is on the right-hand side of it.
So where it says existing garage,
It's to that,
Is-
is facing the house, the right side is the existing
okay,
garage.
so in other words, in this, when I look at this mark that's marked at 3 foot 8 inches on your plan, there is no garage there, right?
Correct.
Okay. Now, if I look in the back,
Yep.
I see an exit into a one-bay garage.
Nope.
No.
Can I
show you?
approach?
Absolutely,
Yeah,
please.
no, by all means.
Caleb.
So the
Please.
gentlemen can take a look at the same.
I'm looking
I
at,
just want to make sure that he drew them right.
I'm looking at this right here.
Okay. What you have,
It's going into a one-bay garage.
here's the garage, here's the kitchen.
Yes.
That's door one, that goes to a porch, it's
Right.
all open. This goes to a garage. This is the family room with sliders that go to the backyard.
These are sliders.
Correct.
I'm fine then.
No, the family room. That's a bedroom. Just kidding.
Slider, okay.
Thank you, sir. Watch your step.
I'm all set then.
Very good, thank you. Mr. Cussy? No questions. Are there any abutters here this evening that would like to speak regarding this hearing? Not seeing any, I won't hold us. And the chair doesn't have any additional questions this evening. Do you have any additional comments that you'd like to share this evening? Okay. Very good.
Motion to close the hearing?
What about Caleb? Just like to hear from Caleb.
Okay, fine. So, one of the board members has requested Caleb's comments. Do
If
you have any comments on the revised plan?
I do not. It meets building code as far as I'm concerned.
Very good. Okay, thank you for that. And so I'll refer back, I know I put that motion on pause, we have a motion to close the hearing.
Motion to close?
Second?
And seconded, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so opposed, so voted. So I will hear the board for a motion to move forward.
I'll make a motion to approve the request for a special permit for an accessory apartment under section 9.3.12. And a variance for this, oh, we don't need the variance for the square footage though, because he's under. So just the special permit for the property located at 405 Rochdale Street in Auburn.
Very good. So, and I actually should have paused before I took the motion, but I would suggest that, and we can do it this evening, but I would suggest that we need to amend the application to remove the request for a variance. Caleb?
No, I don't believe so. The only reason the agenda wasn't amended is because that's what was originally advertised, so we have to continue to advertise that way. As long as the decision is clear to what was decided.
Okay, so we don't need to retract any
No.
application. We can move forward with the special permit and eliminate the variance.
Yeah, we can get a withdrawal form from the applicant on the variance. That should take care of it.
Very good. So maybe would we need to state that as a motion of condition?
No.
Okay, very good. All right, so we can handle that clerical piece. And it just for your, so you understand what we're working through. Very good. Okay. And so the motion's been made to approve of the special permit. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So it is unanimous. Congratulations, sir. So the special permit has been approved. Good luck to you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Good evening.
We're all set. I'll catch up with you.
Okay, so we have one final hearing for this evening, and as we have been, I'll just call it extremely efficient this evening to run up against time early. We have a 7:30 as our last hearing this evening, and I'll double check, but by my watch, I think we're running at least 6 to 7 minutes early. So if I can take a motion so that we can go into recess for 7 minutes?
Take a recess.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
So we are in recess until 7:30. Thank you.
Yeah, this is aggressive. I told my husband I'd be.
Okay, can I have a motion to come out of recess?
Motion to come out of recess?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Very good. So we are out of recess, and our third hearing this evening is a 7:30 applicant, Silver Tree Realty LLC, requesting 10 special permits under section 3.2.2.1 of the Auburn zoning bylaws to allow the construction of two-family dwellings on 10 individual parcels located at Eaton Ave and Hampton Street, map 12, parcels 214, 120, and 125. Can I have a motion to open the hearing?
Motion to open?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
So is the applicant present?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, sir. And I see you're ready with some visuals. So if you could state your name for the record, sir, and give us an opportunity to learn what you're looking to accomplish.
Sure. My name is Andy Baum. I'm from Summit Engineering and Survey. I'm also here on behalf of Silver Tree Realty. As stated, there's a proposed development requiring a special permit for the development of 10 duplex or two-family lots located on Hampton Street and Eaton Street. And I hope that the audience can see some of this visual as well as the board. But basically, for orientation of everyone, on the bottom of this sheet here is Hampton Road, and then to the left is Eaton Street, and then Southbridge Street is where Eaton Street ends up on the northerly side or the upper side of the page here. This proposed development is a little bit of a challenge. I know a lot of the people that are coming here tonight understand the grades that are being worked with here, and also maybe some of the members of the board. For topographical relief, Hampton Street is the high point of the entire parcel, and then it drops off all the way downhill towards Southbridge Street. Eaton Street itself is actually a fairly steep road. So that presented one of the challenges in terms of how we're designing or developing this site. We work with an architect to come up with an alternative design to make the proposed buildings work better with the grades. So in your packet, and also for the edification of the audience, I brought the architectural renderings. And if they can envision the way these buildings work is from on the lower right-hand side of the page here, and I know it's difficult to see. You'll see a single-car garage and then the accessory building to the right with a party wall through the center. So from Hampton Ave, it'll look like a simple ranch or a duplex ranch. The main story will be the living space. We'll have your living dining area. And then you will actually go downstairs to a bedroom or more living space, and then you'll go down another set of stairs to a basement. So like I said, to address the grades, rather than try to force a fill or build retaining walls or do some very extravagant engineering and design and earthwork, we decided to try to make that house work with the grades on the site. Each lot is proposed to be at 19,000 square feet, which is a zoning requirement for a two-family dwelling. As you can see in this visual depiction, this lighter green area is where the grades would catch up and allow for a little bit of a backyard for each of these dwellings. The actual property line or the boundary of the lot itself, I don't know how well everyone can see, but there is these are the actual lot lines in the back. You can see we're trying to be as compact as possible with the site development and subsequent earthwork. Utilities are provided by on-site by sewer connections and water connections. So sewer is available in Hampton Street and Eaton Street. Water is only available on Hampton Street. There is no water main down Eaton Avenue. So as you can see, most of the lots, 8 of the 10 of the lots, will be fronted on Hampton Street and gain access off of Hampton Street. And then there's 2 remaining duplex lots off of Eaton. One thing you'll notice in your plans, and is also addressed in the project summary, when Eaton Street was constructed, that end of the roadway was actually constructed on private property. It's not in the town right away. When we went through some of the design review with Auburn and even discussed with DPW, we're looking at alternatives to rectify that with the town, either through an easement or a granting. We don't know what the appropriate manner is at this point in time, but we wanted to address it. We're not proposing to change the alignment of the road at all. Drainage, excuse me. Drainage will be addressed through the use of roof drain runoff or recharge pits for each of the lots. We do have to submit for a site plan review once we have an idea or comfort level of the reception of getting these special permits for duplex lots. But the thought is to provide stormwater treatment through a common recharge swale along the back. One slight modification to the town's drainage system is off the corner of Glenview. There's a catch basin with a culvert that daylights onto the property there and then disperses out through the woods. We're proposing a manhole to adjust the routing of that water. I did mention sewer in your application packet. We're proposing that these 3 lots be using ejector pumps or an E1 type pump to pump the sewage into the municipal sewer system. And then the balance of the lots, you have a sewer easement that will be cared for through a condo association that ties into the sewer off of the reason that ended where it was shown, you'll see on this lot 7, there is a low point that's difficult to catch up to. So the option was to try to terminate the sewer here to service these lots and not have to bring a substantial amount of fill to bring it all the way across. I mean, the vertical elevation is there, but there's quite a bit of fill on that particular lot. And then what you'll see on your site plans, and the audience can also see on here, is estimated quantity of fill or cut used for each individual lot. And for the most part, the site is pretty well balanced. I think in your report we had a total import of, I don't want to misstate that, a few thousand yards, but you can go through the quantities across the lots and see that using this approach with that particular building design, we're able to keep the fill quantities down and keep the earth disturbance component down. So that being said, one important thing, these are planned to be for sale units, condoized units, not rental units. So I'd like to, with standalone lots, but I'd like to open up that's my piece. the board or the members of the audience have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you very much. Do you have any, just to give you an opportunity, do you have anyone with you that would like to speak as well?
The only other person, proponent of the project that I know of is Mike Conan from Central Mass Builders. He's a general contractor for the project. Mike has any?
And if you'd like to approach, if there's anything you'd like to add, sir, this evening? Okay. Just want to give you an opportunity. Thank you, sir. So we may ask you to approach later if we have other questions. Just want to give you an opportunity to represent your team.
Sure.
And see if there's anyone else to speak.
Yep.
Thank you, sir. So I do see, and as a matter of housekeeping, I apologize for asking. So I do see a fair number of interests in the room this evening, and so thank you and welcome. I would ask that all of you, if you could sign in. There's a sign sheet at the table in front if you haven't already done so. We would certainly give you an opportunity to be heard, but we'd like to record your presence as well in that fashion. So if you haven't already done so, thank you. We'll just give you a moment to go ahead and sign that sheet. And thank you, sir, for the pause here. I just want to, that was a bit of an administrative piece that, given that we have a fair number of members, maybe we could just give them a moment to sign in.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you, sir. Excuse me, Caleb, is there only one sheet? Is there a second sheet that we might share?
You can just go in the back. They run out of room.
Very good. Okay. I was just thinking to spread it out a little bit, but no worries. We're nearly there.
By the time I get back with one, they'll...
Yeah, it'll be
Right. No,
fine.
very good. I didn't know if you might have had one. Sure.
Shield's box of nothing.
Yeah, we should have them in there. I'll make sure we get some in.
It's gonna have to, definitely.
Rather than myself. Imagine doing like at least the people here is a certain level of like, but it's no hold back when they
Yeah,
call.
it's televised on TV, like.
Right, so
it's
people have
supposed
to
to be civil.
kind of be normal. See, my husband texted me.
What kind of matchy match with them?
My friend just wrote, some days you just want chicken fingers for dinner, and that's just fucking life. Guess the diet's not going very well, buddy.
We're going Applebee's from here.
We took our puppy to the ocean this weekend. I know, he's so cute. I don't have any kids, so I show people pictures of my dog.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
My daughter.
We took him to the beach. A lot of work, though. How many kids do you have?
That's awesome. 2 and a Chinese student that my wife can't wait until she gets on a plane.
So you have an exchange student and 2 kids.
We have an
Yeah,
exchange
I mean, you
student.
can't really get a dog.
No,
You don't
I
have time
can't
for
get it.
that.
I don't. He's adorable. What's his name?
Onyx. Dogs are a lot of work though, because for us it's easy right now because we don't have any kids, so it's okay.
That's true. So you have the room. No, for sure.
And by the time we have kids, the dog will be old, and then we'll just lay around and it's fine.
This is an old one when he was still at BC. He's older now and I know it all. Comes home and tells me what I'm doing.
Wait, you have a kid old enough to be in college?
Yeah, he's 20. Oh boy, he's just turned 24. He works at Charles River Associates in Boston now. He's in the financial district, and she's 11. Yeah.
Time flies, doesn't it? She's taking
Honestly.
her kids on a cruise tomorrow. Yeah. I know. I wish I was your kid. You could have adopted me.
I know, huh?
I mean, what the heck? I would love to go on a cruise.
I probably should have taken recess for this one.
That's all right.
It's all right.
They want to get that. Oh my God, leave.
Oh, he put the inset in. Nice. Beautiful.
It already broke.
Is that yours?
The inset.
That's a Norwich ring.
Norwich, right?
Yeah, mine's in my safe.
Oh my God, that's
Very
so
nice.
cute. Norwich University. All right, these are the last 2 people I think. They need to power up the air in here.
Okay. One final.
Last guy, yep.
Close. Page.
Down to the last line.
Not bad.
Receipts. That's you.
Thank you, sir. So if I could have everyone keep their seats, please. What I'll do is, excuse me? Gentlemen, gentlemen?
Receipts here. Let's go. Our time schedule here.
So if we could hold the sidebar conversations and we'll retake the meeting. Thank you. And thank you for that. And I appreciate your interest in being here. And so, given the interest of time and all of the abutters and interests that we have this evening, what I think I'd like to do with, unless there's objection in the board, is I'd like to go ahead and start entertaining questions from the abutters, unless there's an objection from the board.
I'm good with no objection.
Okay. All right, so we're certainly going to do this in a respectful, orderly manner, and I'm not going to assign Baker's numbers, but I would like to keep any side discussions to a minimum as we are recording this evening. And so I'd like to ask in an orderly fashion, and perhaps the best way to start this, given the volume, is if we just start in the front row and work our way along. And so as you're nodding, sir, if you wouldn't mind, go ahead and take your place at the lectern, introduce yourself, and we'd love to hear from you.
Sure. My name's David Parody. This is my wife, Nina. We live on Hampton Street, 226. Our property is not on Eaton, but it's adjacent, so we're pretty much on the corner of Eaton and Hampton. I know everybody's got a number of questions. We do too. One of the initial questions I have is there been any traffic study on how this would affect the volume of traffic on Hampton and Eaton Ave? And another question / concern that I had was about water, where they're going to be drawing the water from. Would it be the Elm Hill Water District? How that might affect water pressure on the street? What else was there?
Cars going in place.
Oh yeah, and just another statement / question and concern that we have about traffic is right at the top of our property on the corner of Hampton and Eaton. In the wintertime, there's numerous times, and we've got photographs from this past winter of cars hitting the corner of Eaton and Hampton and going into the trees there. I just see this as rife for numerous accidents and people coming down Glenview. People come at a high rate of speed down Hampton from the Elmwood direction, and without the guardrail there, I just see this, disastrous accidents, the potential for that happening. I think those are our initial concerns anyway.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you for being here. Sir? Well, and I saw your motion, and so I think I'm just trying to order the best approach for this, and rather than go point counterpoint between you and the audience, what I'd like to do is collect perhaps at least a row or two, and then we can have you address some of the things directly if you'd like to. I'm also going to reach to our building commissioner for his comments on some of these areas as well. Okay, thank you. Sir?
Hi, I'm Steve Sinclair. I reside on Vesper Street, number 3, which my property is basically right at the bottom of the hill behind these homes. My main concern, which I've had trouble in the past when they started logging the road, is drainage off of that hill right into my yard. And I have severe water overflow that comes down the back of my yard. It's about 30 to 40 feet strip of just water that just pours down my yard off of that hill. And when they went back there and started logging on this roadway where they're planning to put these homes, created more of a problem, and more water comes down my yard and floods out my whole backyard. And also continues into the businesses that are in front of me. And I think with this here that's being put in here now is going to create even a bigger problem and pretty much leaving me with no backyard at all, but a river coming down the back. And my second issue is with the sewer. The way it's going through there, if any problems arise in the future, if there's a break or any sewage seepage at all, I have a well. I don't want it affecting my well, where I end up losing I have to find a way to connect into the town water, which I do not want to do. I'm happy with my well the way it is. But that's just mainly my two concerns right there.
Thank you very much, sir. And before you sit, sir, if I may, I did visit the property, and so I just want, just for my own direction. So your property is located immediately below where that logging activity is taking place. So is that correct?
Yes.
So if I were to look at your property in the driveway, is yours the one, and forgive my being naive to the area, is yours the one that has, as it starts to slope up the hill, a view of the fair amount of ledge that's there?
Yes.
Yours is immediately, your property is immediately to that? Okay, thank you, sir. I appreciate it very much.
Hi, David Schroeder, 3 Eaton Ave. I think a lot of people here are concerned about the neighborhood in general. It's all single-family homes. This plan just seems to be a bunch of amassed houses in such a small area. It's certainly going to change the neighborhood. We all think of it as a peaceful, calm place to live. We like having single-family homes there. That's what it's for. And so that's on the top of the list, is just having double-family homes in such a small area on Hampton Street and Eaton Ave. The water is another main point that I need to touch on. We all have wells, Eaton Ave, Southbridge Street, Vespa Street, and we like our wells. The water's awesome, and I don't want to see that affected. With this plan, there's 20 families, that's 40 cars right above our wells. There's road chemicals, there's oils, things are going to leak and leach into the ground, and they're going to hit our wells. That's huge. We don't need toxins in our well. Eaton Ave is a really unique situation. It's a hill. You've checked it out, you know it's a pretty steep hill. The water comes down, it's insane. It's Eaton River at sometimes, and the same on Vespa Street, it just pours down. And if you've ever driven on Southbridge Street during a downpour, right in front of Brady Built, you hit 200 feet of 8 inches of water that hasn't caused any major accidents yet, but it's pretty severe. Southbridge Street can't handle the water flow already. Anytime you take trees out, this is a huge thing on the hill. If this was flat, it wouldn't even be an issue, but we're on the bottom of a hill. The water comes down. The water affects everybody's yards, everybody's wells, everybody's basements. There's no way to do this without having more water on our properties. That's too much and too small of an area. Traffic is another thing. That's 40 cars. Eaton Ave may be the main route for 40 more cars. Not designed for it. And Hampton Street, there's little parking here. They have an event or a party. Next thing we're going to have is 10 to 12 cars parked along Hampton Street. Huge problem. On a bend, not a safe idea, especially when children walk to school on Hampton Street. That's a big, big issue. So those are the highlights that I want to touch on. I mean, we had somewhere around 230 Hampton Street-ish, where some houses were built down there. And as soon as they deforested for a couple of houses down there, there's a building on Southbridge Street right next to the plant place. I can't even think of the name of it right now. Bell's.
Yeah,
It's the next building up from Bell's. The water came, the next building over is what I'm talking about. When they took the trees out, water came down, took out a 6-foot retaining wall behind that building. So much water pouring onto Southbridge Street. Amazing, it really was. I just need you to understand that the water on the hill, we have a unique situation that is going to get much worse without having those trees. And this is all above our wells. This is right where all our wells are, at the top of the hill. Huge deal. Thanks for hearing me.
Thank you very much for being here. I appreciate your comments, sir. Yeah.
Good evening, Ann El Said. I'm at 219 Hampton, right on top of kind of Eden.
I have a couple concerns. One is safety. I pull out of my driveway back on Eaton Avenue praying no one hits me as they come around the bend, right where you have several houses planned there. It's already a very a safety concern. There is no extra space, like the gentleman before me mentioned, for parking. There's nothing extra except on the sidewalk. Very little room on that road. My other concern is obviously two-family homes. I presume that's what this meeting is particular about, is the zoning changes. I missed the very beginning, but I presume that two-family versus one-family is the issue, or is it the number of properties?
The application requires a special permit.
Because of the two families? Okay. So I do have a concern about that with property value and the quality of the neighborhood, the type of neighborhood it has been. It is single families up and down that area primarily, and I feel like it's going to change the nature of it. So safety for me is a one concern, and the other is the change in the neighborhood and the property values involved there. Thank you.
Thank you for being here, ma'am. I appreciate it.
Good evening. My name is Ron LaFlash. I live at the corner of Eaton Ave and Hampton Street, 221 Hampton Street. Pretty much been there most of my life. My grandparents used to own the house. We were the first house up there. And that section of Hampton Street where they want to build is probably one of the most narrowest parts of Hampton Street. And Anna's right. There is no place to park. There's nothing there. There's been so many accidents on that corner right there. I mean, every couple months, just recently my wall got demolished in front of my house. Somebody was coming around that corner and they slid and bang, bang, they went all over the place and demolished the wall in front of my house. But there's been so many accidents right there, and safety is a big issue. I have a couple of grandchildren that live in the house there with me, and they're young, and that's one of the issues. And the other issue I have is the duplexes that are going in, the proposal to put two-family homes in there, and property value. We're all trying to keep up our property values there, and we have concerns about this, and I just wanted to state my case about it. That's all. That's my issues.
Thank you very much for being here, sir. I appreciate your comments. I think what we do is let's finish that row. If we, I'm assuming we'll move over to you, skip over to you, sir. Right. Oh, we'll skip over. You're right, because you're the builder. And so if we could we'll finish up this row with comments, and then I'd like to turn it back over to you, sir, for some additional questions. So if you'd like to speak. If you could come up to the lectern and share your comments, sir.
My name is Paul Gagner, and I'm the current record owner of the land right now. I've owned it for about 45 years, and I always planned to build duplexes there myself, except that I got too old too fast, and so I don't build anymore. But I did build 4 houses on Eaton Ave, and the rest of the neighbors seem to think that the houses I built improved their property values. Secondly, I've seen several of the duplexes that these people have built, and they build a very nice looking house, and I can't think that won't help improve the rest of the neighbors either. And right now, there's been no logging done on that property. There are logs there, but they're my son's logs from jobs that he's in the logging business, and he stores it wherever I've got property. He's like 4 different locations where he's put a bunch of logs. But the logs you see there did not come from that property. And any water issues they're having now, I think would only be addressed once they started putting in houses and driveways and lawns. I think that they would have more control over where the water goes. And tying into town sewer and town water, it certainly is not going to affect any neighbors' wells or septic systems or anything like that. So I'm certainly in favor of them putting in duplexes, especially since I've seen what they build. It's very nice, and I think property values will increase. And I think a lot of these concerns, I think, don't really exist. And I guess that's about all I've got to say for it. But and there are other duplexes in the area. If you come out of Kimball Ave, there's two right in front of you, right there, and then North American Martyrs put they're building up So it's not that the precedent hasn't been started for allowing duplexes in that neighborhood, and I don't know why the forefathers would suggest that you can build duplexes unless they meant to be duplexes, and the fact that you have to come for this meeting is simply to control what's built and have the town have some say over it. Otherwise, they'd build single-family houses, and the same, if there are any complaints, they'd be just the same from a single-family house, which they don't need permission to build, as it is from the duplexes. So I'm hoping you would find in favor tonight of the duplexes. And that's it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. So before you sit, and thank you for your comments, because you've addressed a direct question that I actually had and I was saving. And I had mentioned, and I didn't mean to mischaracterize the activity, but when I visited the property, I did see a fair amount of, I won't say active activity, but there's a lot of log storage there.
Yes.
So you're confirming that those logs didn't come from that property? There was no cutting on that property at all?
That's correct, and my son is slow but surely cutting the logs up and splitting them into firewood and disposing of it.
Okay, so just one quick follow-up, and I don't mean to keep you, but the entrance toward the pile of logs, and I know, I'm sorry if you haven't been there, I'm describing this, but the entryway, was that entryway always there, or was that cut open? Because it seems...
I kind of cut that myself, but it wasn't logging as such. I mean, most of the trees were 5 or 6 inches in diameter.
Okay, no,
and I did that slowly over a number of years, just so I could have access to the property without, because Eaton Ave, I mean, Hampton Street has a guardrail on it.
Okay.
And there's no access to that property from there. So
I appreciate your response.
I made myself I call it a driveway, but there was no heavy equipment logging like that or anything done.
Thank you for addressing it, sir. And
okay.
Mr. Kohler, do you have a question?
Yes,
Or follow-up?
would you ask the applicant where all the stumps came from, the huge pile of extremely large stumps came from?
So a follow-up question to the line of questioning regarding the material that's there. I mean, there are certainly a stack of lengthy logs, and I'm not in the industry, so I'm sure I'm butchering the description. But there's also a fair pile of, let's just call them, 20-foot stumps and pile. And so I think what we're asking is, what's the activity? What specifically is the activity with regard to the logs and the cutting there?
Well, they're supposed to be totally removed. The person buying the property doesn't want my son's residue there. And if you walk the property, you won't find any trees that have been cut down or stumped or anything like that, other than that little driveway that I've put in there. And they're totally my son's. He does jobs everywhere. If he does a job in Holden, instead of bringing the logs back to Charlton, they'll just drop them in Auburn because it's closer and go get more. Unfortunately, I think he had a lot more logs there than even he thought,
And I want to be clear. I mean, I'm not indicting you for the activity. I just want to get clarity on what's been done, what's being done there.
Yeah.
I mean, from my view, and it was a drive-by, but there was a very large, pretty significant machine that was parked there, and I don't know the nature of that or what activity is being conducted. But I appreciate you addressing the questions. If I may, I'd like to move on to some other, but you'll certainly have an opportunity to speak again if necessary.
Okay.
Okay. And so I believe that finishes out that row, and I will absolutely give everyone an opportunity to speak. Just trying to, in my own mind, in simple way, trying to create an order of a semblance to work through this. And so if I can give you an opportunity, sir, to address any of those questions specifically that have been raised by the abutters.
Sure, thank you. I've been making some notes here, and I'll try to, if I miss one, I apologize, but I'll try to address all these concerns to the best of my ability. For the first gentleman, he asked regarding a traffic study for the number of units. A traffic study has not been conducted. You know that entire area is fairly, I'm talking holistically of the neighborhood, is pretty dense. So in percentage-wise, this is a fairly small impact to the overarching area for the amount of traffic we're looking at for a public way. Secondly, or thirdly, I should say, there's presumably, if most people are commuting type buyers, you have 3 potential access points to get to Southbridge Street. So you could go down Hampton Street and then down, and forgive me, I forget the side road that'll bring you to Route 12. You could proceed to the end of Hampton Street and get onto Route 12, and then you could also head down Eaton Street to get to Southbridge Road from a commuting standpoint. Now, everyone's different, but there's some concern about the existing steepness of Eaton Street. We can't change that, okay? But most drivers will recognize if it's snowy out, I'm not going to go down Eaton Street. It's a very steep road. It's a choice. You're not forcing or funneling all these people down one particular avenue. Secondly, water drawdown, that's based off the we will be tying to municipal water using standard connection points from the water department. It would be no different if 20 of these units or dwellings were dispersed throughout the water district. Thirdly, with regard to accidents, there is an existing guardrail on Hampton Street. What we're proposing, we're trying to bring up the grades for a couple of reasons. One, if you progress farther down Hampton Street and you look to the right, you can see where a lot of the houses were built, and basically the houses were built lower than the road, and they have a fairly steep driveway to get back up onto Hampton Street. So recognizing that and also trying to, again, address the fill and work with the site. All these driveways for elevation are proposed to be about approximately 1 foot higher than the gutter line, and that's how we develop those elevations that are shown on your plans. What that does is that provides a very safe access way for the people that are living in at these dwellings to clearly see down the road. It's a fairly flat road. It pitches this way, so this portion is fairly straight. I mean, straight with the exception of the curve, but it's fairly flat, I should say, or evenly graded. You don't have any hollows or low points where you lose visual contact with the vehicle. So when they exit onto Hampton Street, they're already at grade. So it's about as safe as an exit onto the existing roadway that we can make. Several people have talked about drainage or the substantial amount of water or surface water that's coming off today. Again, reiterated that this is a very steep site and it has a whole series of challenges. So a couple things happen. One, you've got a lot of water coming from a high point on the, actually to the south of the site, traversing either onto the road or even going off of the road. So there is a lot of water that's already coming onto the property and through the property and to the back. This project is subject to site plan review and also the stormwater management policy. And one of those criteria is to analyze the site. So you look at the water that comes in existing, and then you also need to ensure that the water, based on those calculations or that model, is not negatively impacting the neighborhood. Now, one thing to note, because all this water sheds this way, out to the north, this remaining parcel is undeveloped and still in control. One thing we talked about doing for managing this water is, again, it's all about slowing the water down so you're not getting this rush and this large volume coming at you. And an option to do that is by putting in a swale. I talked about that sewer line. Sorry. That sewer line here. And one of the things we talked about doing was putting in a slope or an interceptor swale to collect that water and slow it down. Anything you can do to slow that water down is going to certainly address the concern of the volume of water or the amount of water coming at the abutters and off the property. Let's see, wells. So a lot of people talked about having private wells on their properties, particularly around Vesper, which is actually off the sheet. Vesper ends up here off the page. I think one of the abutters was off of Vesper Ave. But all that area is entirely off of wells. When I step back to that stormwater management policy, so there's two components that one gentleman was concerned with, but the stormwater management policy does talk about providing treatment to slow the water down. Now, keep in mind, these are residential units. Most of that contamination that one of the gentlemen was concerned with, quite frankly, is from the salting and sanding of the road. They have that today. We're talking about a very small driveway, trying to be, again, as compact as we can. Relatively small driveway and rooftops. But by providing that swale, it's an opportunity to pick up any sediment or fugitive sediment that might come off of the property and the lawns. A lot of people are concerned about property values, and I would encourage, and I apologize, I didn't bring all the, I don't have enough copies for everyone that was present, but I have some layout plans of the building, and then I would encourage them to also look at the building elevations for what's proposed. It is in tune with the neighborhood, clapboard siding or vinyl siding. One thing, again, driven by the challenges of the site, and it's not final, I'll go through the building department process, but we're looking at what's called an ICF construction aspect. I don't know if anyone's familiar with that or seen it. It's the styrofoam blocks that look like Legos, for lack of a better term. You stack those together, they're about, they can vary in width, and they have reinforced concrete on the inside, but they have an R60 value, so it's going to exceed any of the requirements of the Massachusetts State Building Code for energy efficiency. We didn't particularly build them, but we participated in projects with another client that built several of these in the city of Worcester. And I would, if anyone's interested to see what kind of product, you put the same whatever treatment you want on the side of the building. In this particular case, we're talking about a vinyl-sided structure, clapboard looking. But these are nice homes. They're larger square foot duplex dwellings. They're not small units. There's a lot of options inside the building to move components around to the needs of the particular buyer. So I guess I'm trying to get at it here. These aren't inexpensive units, intended to bring down the value of the neighborhood. It was reiterated, but I think those were the key points that I took away from at least the beginning of the people's comments.
Very good, and thank you for addressing those up front, sir. I appreciate it. As I stated, I want to certainly give everyone an opportunity to speak this evening, and so if we could continue, if you would like to start, sir, on that row. Thank you, sir.
Good evening. My name's John Hintley, and I live at 17 Eaton Ave. 17 is the white area right here. So it's going to be pretty dramatic for me, but it's going to be pretty dramatic for the neighborhood. You've heard some concerns raised about drainage and water, and there is a lot of water on that hill. On one hand, it's a problem, and I know the people across the street from me used to get 5 feet of water in their basement. I remember when the old lady lived there, and I've been there, excuse me, I built that house 32 years ago, so I've been there for 32 years, so I got a little experience. So the lady that lived across the street, she ended up with the fire department a couple of times coming up to bail out her basement, her furnace and everything else, everything, hot water heater, everything submerged in the basement. There's a lot of water up there. Now, I was lucky because I was pretty new into the building business when I built, and I had a fella who did the excavation and the drainage for me, and I've never had any problems, and I'm very pleased. But that hill is rife with water problems. And on the flip side of the water problem is the well problem. We're all on wells. And so if you take all the water that's running down the hill and down to the bottom of the hill and into the aquifer, and you channel it off, and eventually it makes its way to the bottom of the hill and the diversion tunnel that's down there and into the Blackstone River, it never has a chance to replenish the groundwater. And I'm concerned about that. We have a couple of duplexes on Hampton Street, and it's nice when a duplex peppers the area here and there. It doesn't change the nature of the neighborhood. But I lived over on Crest Circle in Worcester, which is off of Wildwood Ave, and I grew up there. And it's a horseshoe-shaped street, and we've got, I don't know how many ranches. What a great neighborhood it was to grow up in. And the last half of the horseshoe, they never finished it, and that was our sand lot when I was growing up. In the 80s, they developed it. And they developed it with duplexes. So we got a whole bunch of two-bedroom duplexes going down the street, and people, it's just a mess. The density is an issue. The yards are small by comparison. We got 2 and 3 cars per family, so a lot of people are parking not just on the street and in the driveway, but on their front yards. It's terrible. It has brought down the neighborhood, and I'd be very concerned about that. I am wondering, we're looking at 10 duplexes. Are we looking at 10 deeds, or are we looking at 20 deeds? 10 or 20 deeds? You're going to have 20 deeds. You know, we've got houses up there with tan on one half of the roof and black on the other half, and so on, or the siding. You know, you got people who have a 0 lot line going right down the center of their property, and if they get along, great, and if they have the means to keep their property up. But, you know, they're going to raise the grade for the driveways. And you know what that's going to do to the land down and back? That's going to increase the grade on the back of their lots. So what is that going to be done? What's going to be done with that? Nothing. Nothing. There's nothing to do with it. It's going to be at too great of a grade to do anything with. So you're really not talking about 19,000 square foot lots. They're separate deeds. You're talking about 1,000 square foot lots, or just under 1,000 square foot lots. And you're not looking at 1,000 square foot lots that are usable space. You're looking at 1,000 square foot lots where they get to use half the space, and they're in a very confined area with a 0 lot line and a big banking down in the back. Now, if you got any questions about how that land is configured back there, I suggest that you take a ride down Eaton Ave and take a right-hand turn into my bottom driveway. I've got the big blue duplex with a red barn down in the back. I like to call it a barn. It's a garage. Pull on in and look at my backyard. The rocks go as high as this ceiling does, and they go right down the side, and they're exposed for, I gotta say, 80 feet or so. And I've landscaped it and cleaned off the rocks, and you know, and it's a nice backyard. I like it. But I invite you to please come on down and take a look, take a walk out back, and see what all of what is going on in that woods back there. Yeah, we got a little stream from time to time this time of year. I roll over a log out in back of my barn.
So
and
if I may interrupt you just for a second, and I absolutely appreciate the description that you're sharing. I just want to move to a couple of final points, if I may, and give folks an opportunity to speak. I certainly want you to be heard.
Oh,
but I want to make sure we focus on what your direct concerns are. I appreciate the walk through the problem.
Well, my concern is the density issue.
Very good.
Yeah, and I've been speaking about what my concerns are.
Yes.
Yeah, so I've covered it pretty much.
Okay, very good. And it's not my attempt to cut you off, but I want to make sure that you're heard. But I do want to make sure that we focus on the points.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here, sir.
And please, any one of you, come on by and take a look at that backyard and out and back. It's a good access to the land.
Appreciate that access and that opportunity. Thank you, sir.
Hi, good evening. I'm Nancy Bates. I live at 15 Eaton Ave.
My name is Mark Stodolsky. I live with Nancy at 15 Eaton Ave, which is the property just built to the north of the Johns after the green strip over there. I'll give you a little history. I grew up on Packagug Street. I still have relatives that live up there right next to the senior center. My grandparents owned the house at the corner of Southbridge and Vespa. For 49 years, I remember going down there. My aunt just sold that property recently. A swamp every time it rained. I plowed Vespa Street myself for 30 years. A swamp because of all the runoff. So I'm concerned about the runoff. The other thing he mentioned, I'll get right to my questions. He said water on Hampton, but I don't know what he said about the water on Eaton Ave. I have not heard the size of the units, how many bedrooms, the size of the driveway. If we're gonna have small driveways, I just heard, with 2 or 3 bedrooms, that means 2 or 3 cars. There's no parking on Hampton Street. I'll speak for the Hampton Street. I grew up, I used to play in these. Go take a walk down there now. That's a swamp back there. And everyone knows that lives on Vespa. I know those houses. I grew up with this land. So that's my concern. Her well, our well is an issue. The storage running behind, ledge, blasting. Are we gonna have to blast? I think I heard 3,000 cubic yards of fill. Let me tell you, that's gonna be these 3 lots. You can see the topographic there is unbelievable. That's a big slope. I don't believe 3,000 cubic yards, if that's the number I heard, is true. Eaton Ave, when I grew up, the top from our house and the one that gets flooded across the street, Mrs. LaRoche's old house, from that up, when I grew up, was a path. It was as wide as a car if you were lucky. Finally, they built the houses John built. They built the other houses. They widened the road. 4 or 5 years ago, they paved the road, put curb in, some drainage. It helps a lot with the water in our basement. I don't know how it fixed it, but it is a river running down that hill every time it rains. It's turned into a dragway since they rebuilt the road. I don't care what anyone says about cars using Hampton Street. You can count the cars all night long that go up and down that hill. It's unbelievable.
I've called the Auburn Police Department many times because the amount, they could just sit in my driveway and they'd make their quota for tickets because the amount, the speed, they use it as a shortcut. Big trucks use it as a shortcut, little trucks, the cars, the kids that drive that go to the high school. And the amount of children that are in the neighborhood that walk with their parents to the bus stop, which would be right up here at the top of Eaton Ave in the corner. And the accidents that the other people have talked about, it's horrendous. And as an educator, that's my biggest concern is the safety and the well-being of the children in the neighborhood and the amount of traffic going down. It's unbelievable.
Another question I have, if they're gonna tap into the sewer line in Eaton Ave just got rebuilt after years of being horrible. Is it gonna be back to the normal condition? It does make it nice in the winter. And the 4 units on Eaton Ave, they will go down Eaton Ave in the wintertime. You can't go up that hill. I got a 4-wheel drive truck and I struggle going up that hill. So, with the new road, and when it was 5 years ago, it was real bad. So those are my concerns. I had one other question. It doesn't sound like there's going to be an association, but John brought up, and I think it was answered, 20 deeds. That means 20 separate homeowners. But again, like John said, 20 years down the road, are they going to be painted different colors, different roofs, because they're different owners? How's that going to work? That's my other concern. So those are some of my questions. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much for being here.
Hi, my name is Lynn Cummins. I live on, my husband Tim is with me. We live on Hampton Street, so probably like right about the middle, I think, 177. So I have I guess a few comments because I think some of my questions have already been raised, but my very first concern would definitely be traffic. We raised 2 kids on this street. They're older. I waited out in front of my house for bus stops for 20-something years, and the traffic is fast on the road, and I know it might seem like it's a small percentage compared to the whole, because it is a busy neighborhood, but it is an important percentage, and that's maybe one of the worst parts of the street, because people come down Hampton Street, they see there's woods or whatever, and they just start flying, and we do hear it. We hear it all day, all night, and it is, and it's not just the Eaton Ave and Hampton Street intersection, I agree, is dangerous. Lots of accidents on Hampton and Elmwood too, so it's just a really tightly packed little spot right there. Our kids are older, so they became drivers, and we cut sort of like a little parking pad into our front yard so that we could get our cars off the street, because we had 4 cars. They were teenage drivers. I don't know, I see that there are a couple of, it looks like maybe a 1-car driveway for each unit. Is that what that's meant to be in with the 1-car garage? So 2 cars, but again, if it's a 3-bedroom house and you have a couple of kids, sooner or later you've got 4 cars and probably, and parties and everything else, and it is tight. Even the home that's, neighbors will say, "Oh, park in my driveway." We try to shuffle cars around to get them off the sidewalk, because people walk on Hampton Street. It's a nice street to walk. So there's a lot of walkers, there's a lot of runners, and we try to be respectful and get our cars off the sidewalk so that people can use it. And I think it is going to be really, really tight. And here would be my feeling about the difference between single-family homes and condos. With all due respect to the property owner, I know it's his land, but you're getting a special permit because I'm assuming it's zoned for single-family homes. So 5 single-family homes or 6 single-family homes, I would assume, with the drop-off and everything else, you'd leave more room for a proper-sized driveway. I can get 3 cars in my steep driveway and then a couple on a parking pad, but I think inevitably you're going to have cars parked on both sides of on that side of Hampton Street, because the other side's a sidewalk. And people do park even off the sidewalk at some of the houses, and I when we have new neighbors, I warn them, don't let your car be halfway in the road, because you're going to get clipped. It happens all the time. So I would suggest that that's not a small, it might be a small percentage-wise, but it's not a small issue. So I would think just a traffic study and some real thought about how that's going to affect the safety of the street, the number of cars. I think most of my other concerns have really been covered, but I do see a big difference for many reasons with single family versus duplexes. And that's the thing, like you did use the word challenges a lot, and I get it. I mean, we see the land, we live there, we've lived there for, I think, almost 30 years-ish. There are going to be a lot of issues, and there are definitely some challenges on the site. Challenges to a lot of people who live in the neighborhood and try to maintain their properties. Challenges to you as a builder, etc. So, I don't know, in my mind that immediately goes to, well, then why are we forcing something into a spot where it just doesn't belong? And I guess that's really my overall comment, is that I think there are a lot of challenges that you'd face, that the neighborhood would face, and does that give us pause to think about, is this the right type of development for that spot? So thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments, and thanks for your patience tonight.
I'm Dan Mullen. I live at 6 Vesper Street. This is my wife, Lily.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, sir. If you could speak just a little bit louder, I just want to make sure my wife can hear every comment.
Where is she? Okay. I'm Dan Mullen, 6 Vesper Street. This is my wife, Lily. I'm not sure I can bring any new concerns to the table. We have the same concerns. We have wells. We don't need our wells contaminated. I heard blasting. I'm concerned with that because my foundation is fieldstone. I don't need my foundation being moved. The traffic in the area, we've already noticed the difference. The cars coming up Vesper Street trying to look up on the hill because they don't know where Eaton Ave is. The water is a huge factor now. It's only going to get worse. With the slope and the grade of adding it's going to be crazy. I'm concerned about the kids in the neighborhood. My boys play on the road. They don't play in the road, but they drive their bikes, walk over to their friend's house. Adding more cars to the neighborhood's just going to make it that much worse. What else you got? Got anything? I think pretty much everything else has been addressed already. So.
Thank you for being here, sir. I appreciate your comments.
Thanks.
Thank you.
We should have been like,
No, here we go.
guess what? We need more. Go to conservation, go to all this other shit, and then come back.
Hello, my name is Trisha Woldridge. I live on 15 Gibson Road, and I see some familiar faces because I've brought up several issues with this area before. Where I live is right here. I have a retaining wall here that we need to rebuild every single spring because this grade is that bad. So if they're going to be trying to fill in this here, that's going to go right into my property. We already have a river that goes through our basement every spring. We also have a cracked fieldstone foundation from blasting that we haven't been able to fix yet because they went bankrupt when they did that. They tried to build on Gibson Road up here as well. When they took out the trees, the water got worse. Our driveway is flooded, our land is flooded. If you take out the trees up here, it's going to get worse. Even if you put a swale in here, it's not going to catch it all because it'll overflow. The water runs that way, not that way as they suggested. You're welcome to come to my house and look. Furthermore, with the traffic studies, also, we're the second generation to live in this house. There's always cars parked there. There's a major bus stop there on the way to work. Holy Cross uses it as their regular track run. So do multiple Auburn High School. During all of the Papa Center events, people park up and down that road already. We have to have the town has to post on Gibson Road so they don't park there. We have had to call people to move cars illegally parked there because they're blocking if there's emergency traffic. I cannot see how that can sustain that many houses. I can't see how it can sustain any houses because of the grade and how many trees you're gonna have to pull out as it is. But, so my major concern is taking out the trees to put in these houses. What about all of us that live down there? That takes away what holds the land up. The retaining walls are not gonna hold it. Ours don't, and we've been, again, second generation built. If there's any blasting, that's gonna hurt. Again, already sustained it, suffering. So what my questions mainly are really, I'd like to see a better idea of how the water's gonna be handled, because again, full of basement. How are you gonna deal with the grade? Because Gibson Road is now eroding after they took out all those trees on Gibson Road. And I would invite anyone to take a trip down Gibson Road to see the amount of damage, irreversible damage, that's been done to the neighborhood from having those trees just yanked out of that land. So those are my concerns, is that honestly, any building there I think is crazy, but that many houses, that much space, having to hold up those houses, the amount of traffic that's gonna come in because there is already traffic issues. Those are my concerns, and as someone who lives there, I really don't want my house to get toppled over if you're like pulling out trees and trying to put in any fill whatsoever there, because I know that battle every single year. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Appreciate you being here.
Who's the last guy?
By my tally, it looks like we've given everyone an opportunity to speak. Did you have someone?
Guy in the back.
Okay, very good.
There's one guy.
Thank you.
This guy looks really interesting.
I think so.
He does look
Hi, my name is Rob Anastasia. I live at 166 Hampton Street on the corner of Melbourne. Having a little bit of deja vu because I feel like I've been here before for a very similar project that was trying to be put in on Gibson Road, and I reiterate what Mrs. Woldridge said, irreversible damage, and I'm very concerned that something similar is going to happen here, because with that we have one project that's already been put on ice, and we have it's some of the very similar same concerns. I'm concerned about blasting. My wife and I moved into the neighborhood about 4 years ago. I have a 3-month-old at home, and we picked this neighborhood because we wanted to live in a neighborhood with single-family homes. It was quiet. We picked Hampton Street despite the fact that it's more or less more of a main road and busy as it is. But we were willing to make that sacrifice with the assumption that something this massive and this dense wouldn't move in right next door. And I know somebody already mentioned there's a bus stop with elementary school kids right on that corner, and I've seen it's been frightening, but I've almost seen kids get clipped on a daily basis because I go that way to work, and it's a blind curve, and you're adding at a minimum. I mean, you consider 1 car per unit, you're adding a minimum of 20 cars, more realistically 40. And I know another concern was that's all well and good that this is considered condos as opposed to rentals, which I can appreciate. However, there's absolutely nothing legally binding to guarantee that in the long term, because it doesn't sound like there's any form of condo association. This isn't Forest Park that's down the road that's actually an association. These are more or less duplexes with the intention of them being kept to condos. So that's a couple of my concerns. Water, which has already been mentioned. The water pressure from the Elm Hill Water District is moderate at best, so I can't even imagine adding all of those units on top of that and what the strain that's going to put on the system. And I think that's anything else I've missed. I'm sure anyone else here has already mentioned. Thank you.
Thank you very much for being here. Appreciate your... Okay. So now I believe that we've given everyone an opportunity to speak, and with that acknowledgement. So I certainly welcome you back to the lectern, sir, to address some of those things directly. As you rise, though, and I don't want to delay you, please. Go ahead. But Caleb, I wanted to give you an opportunity to just share any immediate thoughts regarding this project, what's come before the building department as of yet, as far as any pre-applications for site planning, any discussions with conservation, or any of the like, any specific activity that your department's seen here?
Nothing's been filed with Concom to my knowledge, and I don't believe the site plan's been filed yet. On a project this size, they'd probably have a peer review done, which would look at parking, drainage. It would be a third-party engineer that would go over the plan and make recommendations to the board. A project this size, I can't see them requesting a traffic study. These are all road frontage lots. The applicant could build single-family homes without any special permit on these lots, and the requirement for single-family is only 10,000 square foot lots, so he could probably build close to the same number of single-family homes.
Understood. That's an important point to raise based on the ability and what they can do with the land. Okay. Thank you very much for that. Sir, give you an opportunity to continue.
Sure, thank you. Okay, I did talk about what the next gentleman, or the first gentleman that came up from 17 Eaton, did talk about groundwater replenishment. So again, I'm kind of reverting, so the building inspector is correct. This would require a site plan review. It wouldn't surprise me if the project did require a peer review if it wasn't done through the town's engineering department. But again, talking about his primary concern that he had regarding groundwater replenishment. So when you change the surface, again, I go back to the stormwater management policy. There are requirements in the policy that says, okay, for a certain soil type, based on your impervious area that you've proposed, you're supposed to recharge a known volume, or at least show that you're recharging a known volume of water. That's accomplished. There's a myriad of ways to do it. The most common one that a lot of people in this room would be familiar with is a porous precast concrete rain barrel or something that goes into the ground and allows that water to recharge directly into the ground. There are other opportunities or avenues, but that's a very common one that even some people might even have in theirs, although with the amount of water they're talking about, maybe not. There was also concern about water in the basement from one of the gentlemen. Again, I'm reverting to the grades of the site, and if you take a moment to review the proposed elevations, believe it or not, with this particular scenario, when you go down the 2 floors, we did accomplish being able to basically walk out the basement at the back, with the exception of a handful of lots here, at existing grade. And what that means is there isn't a lot of excavation proposed to get the bottom or the basement floor of the building in. So the 2 things there is, one, alteration of groundwater by putting in a building and then dewatering it. We're pretty close to the surface as we go. And then secondly, related to blasting, both for the dwellings, and the utilities. We know or recognize there's ledge there. Everything is proposed to be as elevated as we can get it. On-site investigation or test pits have not been completed. Again, a lot of this is hinging on the ability to get to have approved duplexes. But the sewer line itself, the basic premise is to try to use the grade to the best advantage and minimize the amount of excavation, and hence the potential for blasting. If there is blasting that would be required, and again, I'm not saying one way or the other, we recognize there's a big knob of ledge. You can see it right out of that number 17 Eaton, that white area here. On that side, there is a substantial chunk of ledge sticking out of the ground, and then it's probably not inconceivable that some kind of ridge line exists below the surface. So we're trying to be as elevated as we can to minimize that impact.
On that point, sir, if I can hold this here just for a brief second. So, and I appreciate what you're saying. There have been no definitive discussions or decisions based on absolutely have to blast at this point in time?
Correct.
But your expectation is that the likelihood is high that you will blast?
It's a reasonable expectation.
Okay. And I appreciate you're coming from a position of what's there and what needs to be done.
Yeah.
I just want for the record and for the audience to understand where you are with that analysis.
And the other thing, I mean, I can't speak to the abutter here that had her foundation cracked from some other activity. Blasters are supposed to be insured regardless of whether they go out of business or not. And they should be doing pre and post blast surveys, particularly when you're around residential uses. So the real sensitive receptors, and I'm not trying to downplay the entire neighborhood here, but like she would have a genuine concern if there was some blasting activity that was occurring here. But it's like a pool of water. When I drop a rock in it, I'm going to see the most impact close to it, and I'm going to see less impact farther away. And that's the importance of performing those studies. And then these guys do this for a living, right? They're supposed to be able to adapt their charges accordingly. So I don't have a definitive answer for the audience on where and when and how much, but it's a reasonable assumption that it's there. May or may not have to deal with it, or deal with it with other means, meaning hammering or drilling, so it's more labor intensive, but less obstructive to the abutters.
And it's not my intention to put you on the spot for that item, but I appreciate you addressing it up front in what we do know now and what you anticipate. But
Correct.
Thank you for addressing it up openly.
Yep. I mean, it sounds like this area is a pretty busy thoroughfare, and there's a lot of existing traffic conditions with people speeding by. I mean, that's not something that this development is going to. If someone comes out of their driveway here, they're not going to make it to 50 miles an hour by Eaton Street. So I don't know, you're coming out, you're opening it up, and the intention is to try to leave some of these street trees along the way to keep someone narrow, or keep it from looking like a wide open space where people are more likely to open up the throttle a little bit. But it sounds like there's probably some community policing that would be beneficial to that area. It sounds like neighbors have been engaging the police department too, so it's not With regards to water pressure, we'll have to deal with the water department. If the water pressure is low or unable to accommodate the dwellings, it may need a water pressure booster in the building. Again, we're not proposing any alterations to the water distribution itself. We're only proposing tie-ins to the dwellings. I think I addressed most of this particular, again, this abutter here, she was talking about a retaining wall. Yeah, that's, if you go down Gibson Road, I am familiar with the Gibson Road project. Excuse me. And you drive around that site and you can see what other abutters or property owners have done to try to address the drastic grades, even on the existing houses that front on Hampton Street. So it's a you can see what other people have done to try to deal with that building on that particular area. I think I've oh, I'm sorry, there's one other regarding wetlands. So it's off of the sheet, but we did have a botanist, a soil scientist come out, and there is a thread, at least on the property. Now, we didn't go off the property onto the industrial building site, but there is a thread of wetlands that comes up here, up into the hill. It looks like it breaks out of the hill, side slope here, and then peters into a larger wetland. The one thing we weren't able to ascertain, at least to date, is where that water goes after it's collected in that wetland area.
All right, well, thank you again for addressing things directly. And at this time, if there are no additional comments, and I looked at the gentleman who was described as a builder, if you have any questions or comments that you'd like to share with regard to the things that the abutters had shared this evening.
Hi, my name is Mike Conan with Central Mass Builders. And one question someone had in the audience was, were we going for a zoning change? And we are not. This is zoned for what we're proposing. You just need to come in front of the board for a special permit for it, but it is already zoned for it. And we're trying to do the least amount of disturbance in the area, and that's why we are proposing these rather than this amount of single families, which would have to be spread out further and, you know, more trees taken out and whatnot. So this way here we saw the least amount of disturbance, and the houses are working with what we have for grades. So again, there's not a lot of excavation on that, but basically it was just the zoning issue.
And so before you said, and I apologize, I didn't catch it, and I don't know that it's written on our application. Could you just spell your last name for the record, sir?
Sure, it's Konan.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that very much. Certainly.
I'm sorry, I was looking through my notes and I forgot to address one component. So one of the abutters was concerned about the number of deeds or you know, the future ownership of these things. So they are duplex lots. They're individual lots that have a two-family building on it. The entire site will have to be condominiumized at some level. Okay, legally what that means, we're going to have some infrastructure, drainage and sewage particularly, that are going to have to be maintained throughout the life of the properties. Okay, so all those will be combined into some form of condo association. The intent by doing it in this manner rather than a multifamily manner was to keep those condo fees down. So sewer and drainage are fairly low maintenance items. You know, for our ongoing continual maintenance. So you will have 20 individual deeds, and then the documents would have to be written to address, you know, one of the concerns was what happens for a particular house. Now, again, I would strongly encourage people to take a look at these, but, you know, they're going to have 30 to 35 years sided, long life sided and roofed structures. So I guess the concern is having a ramshackle type addressment for this particular area. We're trying to, you know, build a quality product that will have a nice long lifetime, and then people will want to continue to be vested in that property.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your comments. At this time, I'd like to turn to the board specifically for questions. I believe that we've given everyone an opportunity in the audience to speak this evening. Before we turn it back to the board, I'd like to give the board an opportunity to step in and address some specific questions.
Motion to close the public hearing?
Yeah, definitely.
So I'll take a motion to close the public hearing at this time.
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so I'd like to give the board an opportunity at this time to speak. And I did get a request from our colleagues here to start on this side of the aisle for this particular discussion. So if I may, Mr. Chacolo?
Oh, to start over here?
Yeah.
Oh. I think we've all heard an awful lot of concerns, but the number one concern that I heard was water. And what we're tasked with here tonight is to decide on giving a special permit to allow the building of these, and I'm going to call them duplexes. The water is a situation that we really don't have control over in this board. We don't have, however, this will have to go before the planning board, and if it does pass, one of my requirements would be that, because I know it would be up to the petitioner to notify the Conservation Commission, that would be a stipulation of mine. With the wetlands and the water, I would definitely want the Conservation Commission to weigh in on this. And as I just stated, the planning board has to go and review this. And with that would be also the suggestion, I don't know if we can control that or the planning board would control it, that there'd be a peer review. When I looked at that piece of property, my jaw dropped because it's such a big undertaking. I'm not in the building business. It's a big undertaking, and it can have an awful lot of effect, as we've seen by the people here tonight. So that the effect on the community as it sits here, there's an awful lot of emotional concern. The number one concern I've heard is water. Then we've got, safety and the traffic and the safety, because Eaton Ave is a narrow road. I avoid using it because it's such a narrow road. And there's easier ways for me to access. I live in the area, as does our chairman, close by. I don't have any further questions, and what I've had is mostly comments, and I would reserve the right to comment further if needed.
Thank you, Mr. Cole. Certainly, you can reserve that right. Mr. Cussy?
Yeah, I have a bunch of concerns with the wells, surface water for sure. These buildings are massive. But what is the square footage of these buildings? I mean,
excuse me. The floor area for each, it's a little deceiving here if you look at the footprint. The garage takes up some of the area, so the actual living space per floor is 700 on the first floor. 700 square feet on the first floor per side. And then the second floor, it's still in the design phase, and we always have to go through the building department, but we're looking at ways of bridging the garage. There's a little bit more floor space on the second, what we call the second floor, the lower floor, and that would go up to about 900 square feet, I think. So you're looking at, for the first two floors, if those are finished, which is what the proposal is, with the ability to develop the bottom floor, but you're looking at 1,700 square feet.
per side.
Per side.
Yeah. So these are huge buildings to be putting in that neighborhood. I don't think they suit the neighborhood too nicely here.
Right. I mean,
size.
So, I talked a little bit, or tried to touch upon a little earlier, the concern about the value of the neighborhood. Okay, so again, I tried to iterate that these aren't small units.
No.
And to try to then have a negative impact on the neighborhood by bringing value down, saying we've got 20 units at 900 square feet. These are sizable units. These are going to be nice units. The first floor is very open concept, and then so that's kind of where we're at in terms of size or scale.
And another concern, while this construction is taking place, I would think the neighborhood would suffer something terrible. I mean, blasting construction. I mean, it'd be probably 2 years of construction, right? Well, these people have to live in.
So that that's will be market driven. The intent is so we did. It's not shown or reflected on any of the plans or what was submitted to the board. But one of the butters, or maybe Mr. Chairman, had commented on the existence of that driveway for that now services the logging operation. Is pretty much by the first turn unit off of Eaton Ave is about where that entrance is.
Yep.
So where I'm going with that ultimately is we talked about in terms of sequencing or development is bringing a temporary driveway in to service all the construction from the back. So you're not going to end up with delivery trucks parked on Hampton Ave, having that negative impact, equipment getting dropped off on Hampton Ave. We're trying to keep the workspace away from negatively impacting the neighborhood and the roadway. We recognize that that's a narrow road, I understand, and we're not, so the only activity you're going to see, or that would be an impact is when you're doing your service connections. You're doing the water service, we got to cut into the road. So that'll occur, and we tried to minimize those number of cuts. And then one of the comments was, and forgive me for not addressing this earlier, that Eaton Road had been repaved recently and actually added some drainage infrastructure right outside of that driveway entrance. So when we make that tie into the sewer, when everything is approved, that tie-in is made, it would have to be put back in kind with the DPW standards.
So you're putting in a pressurized system? The sewer will be pressure?
The proposal you have before you, these 3 lots all the way to the right are low pressure sewer pressurized systems. Okay, and then sewer trunk line would come off of Eaton Ave and service the remaining lots over there. And again, these would be all built to sewer standards. That requires post-construction having pressure tests and whatnot to ensure that there isn't any leakage for butters wells or groundwater supply.
Okay, and then eventually you're going to have fertilizer. There's going to be a lot of things applied to the lawns and things like that that are going to run down. That could affect wells. I'm concerned with artesian wells. Are they artesian wells or shallow wells? Yes. Artesian?
Artesian wells, so they're in a different aquifer.
Okay, I'm good for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cussy. Ms. Glaze?
I guess I have nothing further to add. I think that we've not all brought up, very concerned about the area and the building of it and disturbing the whole area, but no real questions right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Roach?
Yeah, I have a couple. So I know we talked about the sewer. The 3 lots at the end are going to have their own pressurized. The other ones would have another. All the lots on Hampton Street all would be connected to water, to Elm Hill District, I assume.
Yes.
To the regular water. And the 2 that are on Eaton would also be connected to water, or they're going to have wells?
Well, there's the first lot all the way to the right. That does have some frontage off of Eaton, so there is an opportunity to tie into municipal water off of Hampton. The one farther down, we would either go with the well because it's not in any proximity, or we depending on the requirements of the water district, run an extension line through an easement. to tie into Hampton Street. That's not defined at this point, this juncture.
Okay. And when you say they're gonna be built market-driven, in my world, that means if you can sell 2, you're gonna build 2, and the rest of it's gonna sit there until you can sell the rest of them.
Correct.
Correct?
Yep.
Okay. So it could be 2 years, it could be 10.
Correct.
Okay. Talk to me about radon. Have you tested it? Have you tested the water? Have you tested the land? There's gotta be radon up there.
We have not tested it.
Have not.
Have not.
Okay. And then as far as the parking goes, from what it looks like, there's a 1-car garage, and then the other car is parked behind the garage door.
There's a turnaround, the ability for the vehicle to come in and maneuver and park in the turnaround, and the other car can be in the garage.
So the person in the garage can get out of the garage without the person in back moving into the street?
Yes.
Okay. And is there the ability for someone to park on that turn-in and there to be a car behind the garage so that 3 cars could be parked off the street?
So the question is, so can we physically fit a car in the garage, a car in the turnaround, and then a car behind the garage?
Correct.
Yes, you can.
You could?
Yep.
Okay. And the condo association could limit the number of cars in each unit? That's something that
They could do that.
In my opinion, would have to be done if it was to be a go. That's it for me for now.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So I just have a couple of follow-up questions, but I'd like to, if I may, just piggyback on the market-driven question and just the stages. And so I don't want to make any assumptions. The initial phases of construction, and you mentioned the potential for, let's call it a maintenance road in the back, perhaps to house a lot of the initial construction and volume there. Phased over time, I would assume that there's a fair amount of site work that you intend to do, irregardless of whether or not you have pre-sale for these properties, correct?
Yes.
So if I can just ask the open question, could you walk us through the first initial phases of what will be done at a minimum first, and then what has the potential to sit based on market-driven conditions?
Sure. So right now, the intent is to work on these end lots first. Okay. So there's 2 options in terms of accessing those end lots. Okay. One is to, and again, this isn't firmed up in terms of process, so I'm giving some options on how this would occur. So there's some clearing and grubbing for the disturbed area that would have to happen to be able to access that site, and building an access road along the back, along with we talked about some drainage and some infrastructure to try to slow the water down, so we're minimizing the impact to the abutters. And then sequence-wise, it would be going along these units here to begin with, and then proceed the way out. So what that permits for is if you built this access road here, okay, as you work your way down, you're not having construction activity driving behind these houses all the way. So we're trying to minimize, not to the buyers, but also work our way out of the site. Is that?
It does, and I just want to get a sense of it, and I think it's a hypothetical to some degree on time frame.
Yeah.
I think what I'm driving at is has been suggested is the neighborhood impact during construction itself, and so I would expect that if you're focusing on the first 3 lots and you're building, you are not excavating and site prepping all the way down the street all at once. So you're building one and then planning for the other.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I would add there is, I know that area is only about, I didn't bring a scale with me, I'm sorry. This green line is about 100 feet off the road, okay? That area would be, grubbed and stabilized to get through initially, and then, work your way or sequence your way.
And that portion of your response, I think, is what I was looking for, is that there's a minimal amount of site work that would need to be done to the entire site.
Yeah.
As you work your way through.
Yeah, and then, so you would grub and stabilize the entirety, and then as you acquired building permits, then you would excavate for that particular foundation.
All right. I appreciate your response. Okay. Excuse me, sir. I'm sorry, and I apologize, but for just a point of order, we don't have an open hearing at this time, and so I really can't have anyone start to shout out, particularly to the applicant or the board. And so if I may, what I will entertain when the questions of the board are finished is if there are further questions from the audience, I will entertain reopening the public hearing at the board's pleasure, but if I may. And I appreciate your courtesy. Thank you, sir. A follow-up question, sir, just on the size of the units, and I must admit I didn't take a scale to it. And I appreciate that there's a kind of a step back fashion on the right side elevation, but it looks like a 3-story from the front, right?
No, that 3-story, and I'll turn this to I know it's difficult.
Okay, and it may just be me being naive and looking at the plans, but I want to get a scope. And a follow-up question is, what are we looking at from driveway level to peak for a height for these buildings?
Okay, so if you're looking at the building elevations on sheet A3 in your packet, okay, the lower right is actually what you would see from the street. So you can see the 2-car garage, or I should say the 1-car garage per side with the front door or the main entrance. Okay, that's what you would see if you were to walk down Hampton Ave. On the upper left-hand side is actually the rear elevation. So that if you were to stand behind the buildings, that would be what you see.
Okay. All right, so thank you for that redirection, because I think I was focused a little bit too much on the 3-tier. And so I'm looking at, not to over-categorize it, but I'm looking at from the frontage with the 2-car garage, I mean, very reminiscent of a ranch.
Exactly. I mean,
one-level ranch. And then the back essentially steps down for a total height from a back view.
Yes. Yep.
Appreciate that. Thanks for walking me through that.
No problem.
I would just offer for the board's consideration that we have a couple of things before us. I would just offer, I sincerely appreciate the level of interest and courtesy of the abutters and the interest in raising your concerns this evening. For the board's discussion, what I would share is that what we have before us is that there is an opportunity for them to develop this irrespective of a special permit. If they were to choose to put, and Caleb had shared this earlier, but if they were to choose to put single-family homes based on the minimum requirements for a single-family home, they could put equal number of single-family homes.
No, it'd be just 10, right? 10 rather than 20.
He's correct. Based on the frontage.
Square feet.
They only need 10,000 square feet. Caleb, if you could address that.
The frontage.
It would just be 10.
Through the chair.
I would agree that the frontage would limit the number of road frontage lots, but there is the ability to put a subdivision in as well.
Okay.
There's plenty of land here involved to put more than...
So the ability to put a subdivision in would increase their ability to put additional number of, but I certainly stand corrected based on the square footage. So if they would have put a road in, redesign the frontage. Okay, so I stand corrected on the ability as it stands now to put equal number of single-family homes, but they certainly have the ability to develop outside of the scope of a special permit and put single-family homes in a significant number in that space. And so the reason why I'm sharing this is for the benefit of those that have spent their time with us tonight, is that they certainly have opportunity to develop this area outside of a special permit to a considerable degree. Now, there's also, as you've heard the comments from folks in abutters of whether or not that's the right thing to do for this land, whether or not it's too concentrated. I share some of the concerns, certainly, that have been expressed. I also appreciate earlier comments from Mr. Colo regarding this will be vetted through boards with different tiers of authority that speak directly to the aquifer, the water, the runoff, the conservation, the site planning, the peer review. And those things are outside of our jurisdiction in order to allow. And so I offer for the board in brevity, that what's before us is to weigh whether or not there would be a motion forward to allow two families in this neighborhood or not, based on the current design. I think that many of the things that have been raised tonight, thoughtful and appreciative as they may be, are beyond the scope of the board to address directly, and that they would be addressed by subsequent boards as this application would go forward through the different stages. So, and as I promised to be brief and butchered it, I offer it back to the board for any additional comments or questions based on what's before us. As I see this applicant and the hearing this evening, what's before us is essentially to make the judgment on, if the board so chooses, a special permit grant to allow the construction of two-family dwellings on this space. And I think that although there have been many things raised this evening, I think that our decision and our motion would come down to something that's succinct. And I open to the board for any contrary opinions to that.
We are very limited in our scope here.
And so that's how I see it is our scope.
My thought is if they were staggered, like, there's one here, one there, but to pack in 10 two families, I think that's a lot of pressure on the neighborhood. And we have the right to, if we think that's the case, we can say no. We don't have to, my concern is the neighborhood, and the neighbors, the people that have been there for a long time, and as you can see, there's huge concern. That's just my feeling.
Thank you, Mr. Trustee. And I will openly share that I think just the volume and the way in which it's been presented currently, I think that there's a concentrated, tight, packed area. I think that does put a lot of strain on the neighborhood as it's designed now. But I open it to other board comments.
I mean, I think we're limited. If we deny this permit and they decide to put single families, you won't get the chance to come back and complain to us because we don't have a say. They can put single family houses there if they want to.
It'd be different boards, though.
We can't do anything about that. So I think all we can really do is vote on whether or not we're a yes on the two families. That's pretty much it.
I appreciate that clarity, and I would agree. I think that's the scope that we have this evening.
Yep, I agree.
I do want to ask the board specifically, as we're not currently in a public hearing posture, that there have been some hands that have been raised on a couple of follow-up comments. And so I would entertain an option to open up public comment again, if the board so chose, for a brief...
Reopen public hearing.
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
No.
I don't think it's needed at this point.
All right. And at this point in time, the chair would vote yes, but we're looking at a 3-2, and so we would need at least a 4-1 to reopen for decision on public comment.
Mr. Chairman, does that vote need to be a supermajority, or is that vote just a majority to reopen a portion of the hearing?
Ms. Chicola, thanks for raising that point. As a point of clarification,
I don't think you need 4-1.
I do agree with you, and I'm conferring. I think that we may allow it based on an open vote because it's not a hearing vote.
Agreed.
And so, as the chair would vote in the affirmative, I will allow public comment to continue, albeit brief, and I would just offer respectfully a bit of courteous caution that I will give some latitude, but I will restrain if we get off topic very quickly. And so with that, we have reopened, and so I will take folks at the podium that would like to redress some questions, and I'll go ahead and ask you to come up now.
Can't you put a time limit on it?
That back and forth, Ann El Said again. I just wanted to understand, okay, so if this 2 families is not approved, there's an allowance for 10 property, single-family homes, or more if they develop further and put a road in there? Is that what that would mean? And
I appreciate your question. And so, and I'm going to just offer a couple of comments on that, and then I'm going to refer to our building commissioner to clarify, to make sure that we get this correct. And so the developer, the builder, the landowner, they absolutely have the option to build single-family homes as it's zoned in this area. And the frontage would limit the number, the frontage requirement would limit the number of single-family homes that they could put in based on the size of this property, topology, and essentially the way it slopes aside. If they were to redesign, and I don't want to invest too much in hypothetical, but they certainly could design this in a fashion that adds a road. Again, they would have to go through several board approvals, as we've discussed earlier, but they would have the opportunity to develop this, perhaps put a road in, and develop this with a very large number. I say large number, I mean we're talking 10 versus 20. They would have an opportunity to put single-family homes in at their discretion without a special permit. And Caleb, I don't know if you even want to speculate on the number, but it would certainly, they would have an opportunity to add more than 10.
I would agree it would be more than 10. I'd defer to the developer. I'm not sure what the road frontage is total for the property, but these are road frontage lots that they have the right to develop for single-family homes. And all that is required is 10,000 square feet and 100 feet of road frontage for each lot.
Very good. Okay. Thank you very much. Thanks for your question. Is there a follow-up? Yes, sir. And I will work my way back. I promise.
I just brought up a question with the blasting thing. Is there any type of guarantee that, say, after the blasting's over, like most of us do have fieldstone foundations, and say, depending when they blast, say the following spring or whatever, we have all of a sudden our foundations leak or anything, is there any guarantee that that would be rectified by the responsible party? Or and also again, the other thing I wanted to mention is with the, in a way, that ledge that's there, it kind of acts as somewhat of a dam for holding back some of that water that comes down that hill. And I would think once you blast through that ledge, that's going to release even a heck of a dam of water, even more coming down there. So that's another issue. The only reason why I keep bringing it up is because I'm going to be getting the brunt of this. I mean, as it is, I get it now, and what's been done in the past on that property has caused major problems, and I'm constantly out there taking care of my yard. And I don't need any more problems than I have now, but again, with the blasting thing, I wanted to know.
If that's the point, then I'll give you an opportunity to just address that point before we move on specifically.
In terms of the blasting limit of the warranty, I don't, Mike, do you know what the time frame is? I don't know what the typical response is to do a pre-blast survey, so that, we request for permission, or the blaster will request permission to go into your house, evaluate, what the condition is today, and then they would do a post, and then say, okay, we performed this work. What does it look like? Was there any damage that we need to be known of? The question I don't know, and I can't answer that, I apologize, but is what the warranty time is after the work occurred. So that's the first question. The second question related to the holding back the water. So my most likelihood in terms of blasting would be for the utility and the installation of the sewer line along the back. So one of the things you would do through the design is put in what's called water plugs along the length of the trench. So the water that's in the rock stays in the rock. So you'd have a clay plug or some kind of membrane plug placed in intervals vertically, okay, to stop the water from coming out the other direction. So those are two of the things that would occur should the blasting be necessary. But Mike, do you know if this is what the typical warranty period is for post? Okay, I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, but I don't know the answer to that question.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
Mr. Kohler, did you have a follow-up?
I was going to, but that was addressed, and I would say to the gentleman who was concerned about that, that will assuredly be addressed by the planning board as well as a peer review. But the gentleman addressed it when he mentioned that there would be, I'm going to use the word barrier, and that's incorrect word, but I know what you're saying.
Thank you. Okay, very good. Additional comments or questions? Yes, sir.
Just a couple of quick comments. One of them is on the blasting. I don't know if they're going to have to blast or not blast, but I do know when I built the houses on Eaton Ave, I had to bring the septic pipe up, and Jeff wanted me to make it a large enough pipe to accommodate any houses that might in the future be built on Hampton Street. And the ledge that we encountered on Eaton Ave was relatively shaly, and it was able to be taken out just with a hammer. In fact, a hammer on a backhoe, not even on an excavator. Now, I don't know what they're going to encounter up there, but I'm just telling you what did happen on Eaton Ave. The second comment I had, all this water complaints, that's a function of rain. Whether you got single-family houses or duplexes, it's not going to affect the rain. And the water does come from the further hill up. And before I built on Eaton Ave, the water used to come down Eaton Ave and collect on Southbridge Street. Sometimes the gravel and dirt that washed down was 5 and 6 inches thick. They had to bring a loader down to clean it. And since I built the houses there and worked with the town and put proper drainage in down Eaton Ave, I don't think that problem exists anymore, at least not that I'm aware of. So,
appreciate your comments.
And duplexes are bringing more revenue to the town as well. So.
Additional comments? Yes, sir. And I'm certainly working my way back now. Yes, please.
Mr. Gagner is absolutely right about that the drainage has been improved on Eaton Ave as a result of his building, and the puddles of water on Southbridge Street haven't occurred with the frequency that they used to. What I wanted to say was, with respect to the sewer line, they're going to build a road from Eaton Ave, and the sewer is going to be connected at Eaton Ave. So they're going to have to do that all the way up because they're starting at the far end. So they might not be excavating for homes, but they are certainly tearing up all the ground all the way in order to connect with the very first house. Right. And that was the point that I wanted to make earlier. The only point that I would like to reiterate is that this is a challenging site, and it's intensive use, and I just think it's too intensive. I've lived, as I said, I've lived over there for 32 years, and I've expected development all along. Mr. Gagner made an improvement to our neighborhood all the way to the top, and I expect that we'll have development over the course of the time. So I'm not anti-development, I'm just anti-intensive use, especially in such a challenging site. Thank you.
Thank you for your follow-up comments, sir. I appreciate it.
Some of my questions were answered, but I'll kind of keep it simple. I never heard how many bedrooms. I kind of got the answer to square footage. And then with basements, there's an attempt or possibility that those basements could be developed in the future, which would now go from 3 bedrooms I just saw, I believe, to 4 bedrooms, which adds another vehicle, probably. I know that's above yours, but going back to the single family, I'll stick to the zoning board, the Board of Appeals. If they were single family homes, is there a size the limit on 100,000, on a 10,000 square foot lot, could you put a 3,400 square foot single-family home? Would that be allowed without a special permit? I guess that's my question.
Yes.
Yeah, there's no issue with that, with frontage, but I guess the other comment that's been mentioned is the density. The soil line was answered. I was worried about the soil line on Eaton Ave. Could it handle the volume? I guess that was answered.
Yep.
Of course, that would have to go to other boards. I realize that, and one more comment I'm going to have. It's probably way above this board, but if they're going to bring in excavating equipment off of Eaton Ave, it's going to be a very challenge to get a low boy up Eaton Ave or down Eaton Ave. So that means the equipment's going to enter either from Hampton Street or be driven down Eaton Ave or up Eaton Ave, because to get a low boy with that slope, you'll never do it. I've driven trucks for years and it won't make it. That's all of my questions and comments.
Thank you for your
comments. And thank you again for opening the meeting.
Right. Thank you for your comments, sir. I appreciate that. And I believe, and it just as a point, it's certainly, I'm not looking to hold you, but I believe that we've answered your questions, correct? So just for the record, we were talking about 3 bedrooms, correct, in each unit?
Yes, so the floor plan that you have before you is actually a 2-bedroom unit. With the development of the basement floor, that would make it a 3-bedroom unit, but I would request that through the special permit that you don't limit the number of bedrooms. I mean, these are trying to be very open floor plans to allow, potential users or buyers, they could have 2 bedrooms or they could have a large bedroom by themselves. It'll give some options for the people rather than have a very, very cookie cutter style inside the building envelope. Thank you.
Thank you for your follow-up. I appreciate you confirming. Thank you, sir. Additional comments? Yes, ma'am. Last but certainly not least.
Thank you very much. Again, this is Tricia Wildridge, 15 Gibson Road. One question that hasn't gotten asked yet is how many baths per unit in the duplex? Because that will affect water pressure and sewage.
2.5? 1.5 bathrooms.
So the response was 2.5 baths planned in each unit? 1.5 bath planned. Okay. With a potential for a second or? Okay, very good. Okay.
Okay. So looking at duplexes, and we have those footprints there, that's still 20 families. So that's going to be 20 to 30, possibly 40 bathrooms there. Even if they went up to 15 single-family houses, that is still fewer bathrooms. Other questions I have with going with the duplex special permit. With the amount of land that needs to be cleared for a duplex, even though the footprint may be the same, the parking still would need to be potentially more. So if the zoning board were to say no to the special permit on the duplex, would they still have to go through and get special permits for fill or anything like that?
Single families.
No, those questions specifically on how they would site plan it would be addressed by other boards.
But they would have to go through that. So if you said no, we would still have an option to talk to other boards.
You will certainly have an option to appear with other boards as they walk through a process. If they were to be denied for the 2-family option and they were to move forward with single-family homes, then there would be other boards addressing it, but they would not have a requirement to appear before this board specifically for that special permit. Caleb, did you have an additional question?
Yeah, if I may.
Please.
For a single-family home, if it was designed similar to these structures with minimal fill, they probably wouldn't need an earth fill permit. It would fall under a building permit.
Very good. Okay. And so the expectation is that they would not need, based on the design that's being proposed, they would not need a special permit or authorization to move forward with that.
They said that at Gibson Road too, and then they needed it because they realized how bad the grade is. Other question on that, again, with the amount of people going through this. So listening as an audience, it sounded like one of the reasons to allow this to go through was that so we could speak to other boards. But with the duplex issue, the amount of people is, even if they built 15 houses, that's still fewer families and fewer foot traffic. Is that correct?
It would seem so.
Okay. To build that road and access, because that will cut across my property, and they would have to skirt my property to do that. Would there be a way to argue that, again, if you declined the duplexes?
This is, and quite frankly, this is going a bit beyond our scope, and we're going through hypothetical. It would certainly depend on how they would intend to cut that road, what setbacks, what land that they intended to use, and so I wouldn't feel comfortable, quite frankly, speculating on what boundaries they would need to set. It would depend on how they designed it, and how, if they were to approach your property, then there would certainly be an opportunity for you to speak as an abutter on what they're doing.
So if you said yes or no, that wouldn't make a difference? Is that what you're telling me?
I have to admit, I'm a bit confused on what I can say.
If the board voted yes to approve the duplexes, I'd still have to go through the same thing as opposed to if you voted no on the duplexes. That's an entirely separate problem.
Yeah, I'm quite frankly, I'm on shaky ground here, and either confirming or denying on your approach. I will say this, if I may, and I'm not. This isn't a political spin to not answer your question. There are, as stated, a variety of options for them to move forward, with or without our approval this evening on the intended duplex. If they choose to pursue other avenues or this avenue, if in fact approved, then there are a variety of significant authoritative boards that they will seek guidance and approval from, including site planning. We've mentioned peer review specifically, including conservation, and as they come up against those challenges or opportunities for themselves, depends on how that takes them, quite frankly. Depends on how close. I mean, if they were to cut through your property, then you would absolutely be involved in that discussion, I would assume.
Right.
But I don't feel comfortable speculating, quite frankly, on what direction they would take versus how that might affect you directly.
Right. But the vote here is to allow the duplexes.
The vote here is to allow the duplexes.
If you deny the allowance for duplexes, we will still have fewer families, fewer driveways, and fewer accesses. Because as it is, we have to have all of those driveways, all of that access, and including the driveways, that would be a bigger footprint.
So I'll just respond succinctly and say it will depend. It will depend on how they design that, if it were single-family homes. It appears that it would be fewer in the way you categorize it, but it would depend on the design.
Right.
There are other options, including subdivisions and additional roadways that they may seek, and I'm not looking to pre-plan this in any way, but it would succinctly decide, it would be determined by the scope of their revision.
Right, but we would have the chance to argue that. But by permitting it, they could still just go ahead and do that, in a sense. That they've got the okay for the bigger footprint and more family. That's where I'm trying to go with that, is that as an appeal to the board, because it's an appeals thing, is if you say no to this, then that is, it still is going to limit the impact. A yes to this maximizes the impact and gives an okay to that, and that's why I'm worried, and I wanted to stress that by denying the duplexes, that still allows us our chance to argue with the problems that there are and then appeal to the other boards, so you don't have to pass it to say yes so that the planning board can deal with it. If you say no, that's already one more limit, and we can still deal with the other things with the other boards. And that's where I'm going, and that's why I would hope that you would vote that we don't do the duplexes, because that is going to have more families, period, as a final thing, more traffic and bigger footprints and much more impact to the trees and the land and all of that on this property.
With all respect, I mean, we've certainly heard you. I think we have your position well recorded, and so I appreciate your comments very much.
Thank you very much.
Just out of courtesy, one final option for anyone to speak.
Can I make another comment?
One brief, and I'll give you a fair amount of latitude.
Real quick. We talked about bedrooms and bathrooms. bathrooms. If there's 2 bedrooms on the second level down, and it's the same footprint on the bottom, guess what? 2 bedrooms can go down there. It's now a 4-bedroom house. That's 8 bedrooms on a 100 square foot lot.
I appreciate where you're going with
That's
this.
all I'm saying.
I ask that we not start going down the road of hypothetical on what could be designed.
I'm just saying, so that's 8.
I understand, and not looking to challenge your comment. Thank you, sir.
That's my concern.
Very good.
Motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We are closed on a public hearing. Okay, so I think, and the latitude, and I'll certainly take responsibility for this, but the latitude that I've offered is to certainly respect those that have spent the night with us and want to share their concerns. And it's not just out of courtesy, it's a real process that I appreciate when the public gets involved. I mean, people have investments in their property, and I understand why they're here. Without any further discussion, I think that from my perspective, our decision in front of us of whether or not to raise a motion or not is succinctly duplexes or not.
Correct.
And so I offer for the board, is there a motion?
I would make a motion to deny. I think it's too much pressure on the neighborhood.
Second.
A lot of traffic.
Mr. Cussy has made a motion to deny, and second by Ms. Blaze, excuse me.
Karen.
Kept wanting to call you Karen.
That's fine.
I'm not meaning to
That's
go
perfectly
informal this
fine.
evening. Okay, and so motion has been made to deny in second, and for as taking a risk. Is there any additional, as it's been second, any additional comment or question from the board based on the motion before us?
No.
Okay, hearing none, seeing none, and so I will take a roll vote. Ms. Roach?
I would deny. I denied.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, he asked.
Yes. It was a deny for Ms. Roach. It was a deny for the application. Okay, and Mr. Cussy is in. Excuse me, just catching up on my paperwork. I apologize. Mr. Cole?
The vote was to deny the application, so in the affirmative for the...
Correct.
Okay.
That would be correct. So the motion...
Yeah.
Yeah, the motion has been made to deny. So affirmative to...
Doesn't go through either.
So a yes would mean affirmative to deny.
I'm going to deny.
Very good. So
that's a...
So what we have
That's a
before us...
no to deny.
That is correct. So for the record, we have a 4 vote and a 5-member board. So we have a 4 vote to deny, and the chair will make it unanimous, but regardless, we would have a 4 to 1 if I went in the other direction. So the chair votes no. It is in fact a denied for the special permit to allow this application to go forward as written.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
You are voting against allowing it.
I am voting against allowing it. So I am voting affirmative to deny. And thank you for the thank you for the clarification, because as my crib sheet has shown me, I'm circling no as saying yes to Mr. Cusky's motion to deny. So the application is denied. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. Thank you for being here.
Chair,
Yeah.
one question. Are you denying all 10 applications or just one?
All 10.
All 10. And that's an excellent question, and thank you, because we certainly, as the motion, excuse me, you know what, we'll, let's go ahead and take a quick pause while folks exit. If I can ask if everyone could just take their conversations outside, please, as we have an open meeting to continue. Thank you. Thank you.
And don't talk about.
That's a good question. With 10 special permits.
Gentlemen?
It's going to get appealed.
Gentlemen, if I may ask you to just exit outside so that we can continue the meeting? Thank you. And so the question had been raised by the applicant, and that's an excellent question regarding, as I was seeing this hearing and this application, I was seeing this as a single application for all 10, and so a single vote. And so I would expect that a single vote would cover all 10.
I would agree.
I would agree.
Okay, so very good. So as it stands, all 10.
I would agree.
All 10 had been raised and denied. Okay. So moving on to other business for this evening.
Where'd those things go?
We have decisions, I believe. We have decisions for signature that are going around.
We have a discussion.
And there is actually a discussion, and I don't know the origin of where this has been raised. And so as the signatures are going around for these decisions, I'll move to a discussion advertising fee from $100 to $130. Caleb, could you speak to that?
I have not spoken to Sheila directly. I assumed that she notified you. My guess would be that that is to cover actual costs incurred when advertising.
That would be my concern, that it be actual costs, and to say that the costs went up $30, did postage go up that much?
And it's going up again. It's supposedly going up again.
Sorry.
They're trying to get it to go up again, so.
Yeah, I just don't want to say it. I would not want to vote in the affirmative on that if indeed it was to raise additional revenue. I think people already pay enough to do this.
Do we know, thank you, Mr. Cook, do we know what's driving, do we know who proposed this?
I do not. I assumed it came from Sheila, and I assumed it was part of your packet. I haven't had any conversations about raising fees, so that's that's what leads me to believe that it's cost-driven.
Okay, no, and I'm certainly not trying to put you on the spot. I have to admit, I don't think I opened up all of her attachments that came electronically, but I don't believe I received anything in the packet for it. I didn't see anything to this point.
I'd make a motion to continue it to discussion to the next meeting.
Second?
Second.
I did not hear that motion.
Okay, so the motion's been raised to continue the discussion for the advertising fee?
To the next hearing.
To the next
so we
hearing?
can get a little more information
Agreed.
about what
Get
it
some
would
additional
be.
background.
So we need a second.
Thoroughly agree.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. So what we'll do is we'll move this to the next meeting and see if we can get some background on, and I could certainly follow up with Sheila. We'll get some background on what's driving this and who has proposed it. Okay. Minutes to be emailed from 4/20, and then our next meeting, June 15th. That sounds like summer.
Yes.
Any other items for the board? So we don't have minutes to approve this evening, correct?
No.
I got them done a couple days ago. I don't know if she sent them to you.
I don't think she.
All right, and I don't recall seeing them directly, so we'll handle minutes during the next meeting. Any other business?
Motion to close.
Motion to close has been made. Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you all.